Welcome to Summer School, Club Fantasy's best ball podcast. I am your host, Austin Amandolia. And before I introduced our co hosts today, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so that you know every time we go live, because we go live often. But now we're going to introduce my co host. First, we have the great Matt Record at MRecord21. He's with Club Fantasy and IDP guys. He does all of the great musical endeavors. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to get this podcast rolling and talk about one of my favorite formats, best ball.
Gosh, love best ball. And we're going to get into what is best ball. We're going to talk about why we love best ball. But first, I need to introduce our guest tonight, Chris Molina at ChrisMo2413 on Twitter, also with Club Fantasy and author of Talking Props, our weekly prop betting article. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good. I noticed you said Matt was great and not me, but I think that's fair.
It's the mustache.
I'm the mediocre, but I'm glad to be here. And best ball's probably my favorite format.
Okay, well, I gotta redo that because it's the great Chris Molina as well. You're both great. No, I'm so excited for this show. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. I am so excited for this show. Best ball is one of the most fun formats, in my opinion, and I think in everybody's opinion on this show, and it has been taking off in the past couple of years. And so some people, you may not even know what best ball is at this point. Some people you may have played a couple of times, but you want to figure out how to get better. And we're here. We're going to help with all of that. So if you're watching this and thinking, what the hell is best ball? Don't worry. We're going to get to that momentarily. But let's say instead you're getting flashbacks and wondering, why did we name a podcast Summer School? Well, let me tell you. If you follow our in-season content, you know that I write a weekly DFS cash article called the A-List. And when we started that column, we built it on kind of a classroom theme and made it part of the DFS Academy at Club Fantasy. And so Summer School is the late addition to the DFS Academy. We're just keeping the theme going. This show is going to air throughout the remainder of the summer. We currently have 6 episodes planned, but we'll see how it goes from there. And every week, we're going to cover a different topic related to best ball, focusing on the strategy and game theory surrounding best ball. We're going to leave the player takes to our flagship show, no pun intended, and our dynasty show, the Dynasty After Party. But we'll use players as an example, but as an example for implementing certain strategies. We want to help you think through the strategic aspects of best ball. Episodes are going to air Monday nights. Matt and I will be here with you every week, and we'll have Chris and Benny Best Ball cycling in and out. I didn't check what Benny's actual last name was.
It's probably Best Ball.
It's probably Best Ball. At this point, at this point, you would just get it changed, right?
Of course.
100%. And we've already got content related to best ball up on our website. If you go to clubfantasyffl.com, you can find the 2023 Ultimate Week 17 Best Ball Study Guide, where I break down all 16 Week 17 matchups, including players to target. We'll talk more about why to target Week 17 in future episodes, but for now, you can start studying which players to target using that article. Last thing, we wanted to mailbag questions on this show. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them in following episodes, or tweet at any one of us and we'll get to your question. But we've delayed quite enough. So now it's time to get into it. So we're going to start out with just what is best ball? Since this is our first episode, we're going to just spend some time describing what it is so that anyone that has never played before is able to follow along and understand what's going on. So we're going to start with Matt. Matt, tell us. What is best ball?
All right. As you mentioned, Austin, best ball is kind of a new format that is really taking the world by storm. It's incredible. So most people, when they think about fantasy football, they get nervous about the in-season roster management and all the decisions they have to make. What if I pick the wrong players in the wrong week? That's not great. What if I told you there's a format of fantasy football where all that is sort of taken care for you? It's amazing. So the way it works is you draft typically a very large team at the beginning of the year. And then that's it. You have your team. There's no in-season roster management. And then every week, your optimized lineup is played. What does that mean? let's say you had both Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. In week 1, Lamar Jackson scores 20 points, Joe Burrow scores 15. You would have Lamar Jackson in your starting lineup for that week. That was the best choice at QB that week. Week 2, let's say Burrow scores 20 and Jackson scores 15. That week, you would have Joe Burrow in your starting lineup. So you're maximizing the number of points that your team can score each and every week. And it happens automatically. There's no in-season roster management. So truly, it's a draft and you're done. I don't know, Chris, if I missed anything there. Anything you want to add?
I like to think of it like start sit, but with hindsight. So you could go Tuesday morning and you could go make your start sits knowing exactly how many points everyone scored. Obviously, you're going to have the most points possible at each position. Like you said, you're going to put Lamar Jackson over Joe Burrow in week 1 in that instance. But I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that analogy. The start sit, but on Tuesday morning.
That's
Man,
incredible.
if only we could do that. Oh, but we can with best ball. If you play golf, you get the concept already. I was doing some Google searching for best ball the other day, and I was like, why am I getting all sorts of golf content coming up? And it's because in golf, if you play with a group of friends, whoever hits the longest shot has the best ball, and so then you can go with that shot and keep going from there. And it's a great way for folks to practice. Similar concept. You just get the best outcome each time. But we're going to get a little personal with this. So for both of you, we're going to talk about how long you've been playing best ball, what got you into it, and all of that. We're going to start with Chris. So Chris, how long have you been playing? What got you into best ball? Why do you like it? Just tell us a little bit about your best ball journey.
I think this is year 4 for me, I believe. I don't remember if I started playing when Underdog was still draft before they sold it. It was around there, but I started because mock drafts, you don't get like the full immersive experience, right? Somebody's trying to take this guy or this guy to try out strategies, but when there's money on the line, everyone is bringing their A game, and who doesn't love drafting? That's the main thing here. Is like the best part to me about fantasy football is the draft. So why not draft over and over and over again all summer?
Yeah, I love it. Matt, same question for you. How long have you been playing? What got you into it? Why do you like it?
Yeah, so I've been playing for this is my 3rd year, so I'm a little newer to it than you, Chris. I'm addicted to fantasy football. Excuse my cat if you're watching it. On the last game. No decorum this one. So addicted to fantasy football, love everything about it. You want to try every format because everything has its own, positives and negatives for people. And, in being a content creator, you kind of need to understand, all the formats, like kind of dip your toe in each one. And because I'm addicted to fantasy football, I'm in a million leagues, far too many. I did a count once and it's like, it's not healthy, but it is what it is. So the best part about best ball, kind of like what you said, Chris, you get to draft, a real team. Like one of the best parts of the fun enjoyment of fantasy football for me is the draft process, right? And like the mock drafting and all that jazz. And then you're done. And then it's over. You don't have to do any of that roster management. So you can kind of just keep checking in once in a while. So you get the fun of drafting. You can kind of do it all year round. I know I've been doing a bunch of best ball drafts, both for IDP and offense only, since last season ended, because why not? Why not keep doing it? And then you don't have to do any of that in-season roster management. So it's for me, it's just another nice flavor of fantasy football that I can kind of pepper in there with the other more standard types of leagues.
I think you touched on a good point there. I've been trying to cut down on my season-long leagues, both for redraft and dynasty, to have that core a few of each, and best ball is a way to like get around that.
You can scratch that itch without having any more more time stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's a little bit dangerous at times because I'm like, really? It's January 15th and I'm already drafting for the next season. Is this a good idea? And it's like, yeah, sure, why not? It's fun. I've been playing best ball this is my 2nd year doing it. I just started last year, learned for what it was for the first time last year. And I got into it because a group of people, I was like, hey, let's play a best ball league. And I was like, okay, cool. What's that? And I did pretty well. And I was like, oh, I came in third, and it was just a fun, easygoing way to do it. We also did like a 30-round draft, and that was wild. I was just like, it was too much, but it was great. And similar to you, Chris, I love the being able to just do the draft. The drafting is the favorite part to me, but also it's a great way to introduce people to fantasy football for the first time. And I did this last year with my work league, where I am trying to grow the fantasy football work league that I have. And I have some people that do just regular standard redraft leagues, and they're in it and they're ready to go. But I wanted to expand it. So I said, okay, what if I told you just have 2 hours to take out of your entire like 6 months of NFL season, and you can just sit back and maybe win a prize at the end, because my work sponsors our league. And so I'm like, that's great. And I got some people into it, and they were down with it. They loved it. They loved at the end of the year, they got a prize. I'm going to make some tweaks about it, but it's a good way to grow and to experiment with new things. You can experiment with new formats with a little less stress throughout the season. And it's a choose your own adventure. You get to do what you want, and it's so much fun. So now we're going to talk just about some of the key differences between best ball and redraft to really start to get our heads into the mindset that we need to be in when talking best ball. And then after that, we're going to talk some strategy points, because we don't want this to just be an introduction. We want to start getting you ready to draft tonight. So first, key differences between best ball and redraft. The first one is you need to draft multiple quarterbacks and multiple tight ends. In redraft, sometimes we're like, just draft one quarterback, deal with the bye week later. But in best ball, you need to draft multiple quarterbacks and multiple tight ends. Matt, tell us more about why this is important.
Yeah, so we brought this up. There's no in-season roster management, right? So often in the redraft format, especially leagues where you're starting only one QB, if you went and spend high draft capital on, let's say, Josh Allen, you're starting him every week, right? Like that's what you're doing, other than his bye week, which Austin, as you mentioned, you can go on waiver wires and pick someone else up during that time. You don't have the luxury of doing that in best ball, so you need to draft more than one for a few reasons, right? One, especially at the QB position, it's usually your highest scoring spot, right? So if your stud has a dud game, you're really in trouble. So that, and for bye weeks and injuries, all that jazz, you kind of have to have that insurance at that position, right? And there's different strategies for, when you actually draft QBs in the best ball drafts, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some later time. But you need to have those more luxury positions there really set up for you to be successful.
Yeah.
Go for it, Chris. I like that answer. And to, I guess, see how it plays out, I just started a draft where I went Kelsey Mahomes in my first 2 rounds. In redraft, well, I don't know if any of us are starting Kelsey Mahomes in redraft, but let's say you're not taking another QB, you're not rostering another tight end other than the bye week, and that's it. For best ball, you need to cover Mahomes' bye week, Kelsey's bye week. Otherwise, you don't get any points from that position that week. And if they, like you said, if they had a dud game, it's nice to have, I don't know, a Sam Howell 15-point game to save you in that position.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where in best ball, depending on the format you're doing it, it could just be total points across the season. It could be you're playing against another player each week, just like you do in a redraft league. And having a 0 at your quarterback or tight end spot is going to kill you in these leagues. Like best ball leagues, sometimes they end up really close, where you would be surprised that after 17 games, it's first and second place are only spread by 20 points. If you missed out on that bye week, you lost that league.
It's one of those things too, where you're not the only team that's optimized every week. Every team's optimized every week. So you really can't have a dud at one of those very important positions, versus the other positions we're already conditioned to draft just a bunch of running backs, a bunch of wide receivers, right? So like you're trying to getting your lottery picks there, versus it is that change in your mind of strategy of like, oh, I can't just rely on Mahomes every single week. You can most weeks, and if you're picking him, you hope so because you're banking a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to have some insurance.
Yeah, 100%. So now the second key difference between best ball and redraft, and it's a little bit of a continuation of the same theme, but there is an increased value of players who are going to be on the field. So in redraft, it is much easier to stash a player because you can just drop them later if you get tired of waiting for them to come back. The prime example of this is like last year with DeAndre Hopkins or Jamison Williams. Like you were stashing those players oftentimes in redraft leagues because you could just, if you needed to drop them to make roster room, you could. But in best ball, you don't get that luxury. You need to be betting on players that you know are going to make it on the field. And because if they don't, you're just going to have to live with it. Chris, do you have anything to add about this?
I think of this prompt in terms of like always the Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison of years past, like in redraft, if you want to, some people would want to stack Madison with Cook. Here, if you did and Madison didn't play much all season, you basically wasted a roster spot there. What I like to do would be Dalvin, or if I grabbed Dalvin Cook in the past, I don't grab Madison. I'll go grab. I'm blanking on stash running backs at this point. Other than that, but like you said, you're making a determination that they're going to play. If you're drafting two players like that for one position, you kind of waste a roster spot.
Yeah, 100%. Matt, you got anything to add?
Only echoing what we've said before. Every single week in best ball, it's hard to win. And especially in ones where it's total points at the end, you're not playing against another team. You don't have, like you said, the luxury of waiting an 8 weeks for someone to come off of IR, right? You really don't. Like, you need to get those points right off the bat. I will say, as with everything, there's caveats. Like at a certain draft capital, right? You're going to have someone like a Madison, which not a great example, I guess, this year. Maybe now I'm blanking on it. You know what I mean? At a certain point, it is worth that risk, but oftentimes I'll let someone else do that because I'd prefer to have people that are playing.
Yeah.
I got a good one. The Bears running backs, the trio. If you drafted two of them, you probably wasted a pick. Go with your gut and grab one of them.
Yeah, 100%. So on this theme of drafting players who are going to be on the field, I wanted to tell a story about me from last year because I start drafting as soon as possible. So when Underdog is like, all right, the NFL draft hasn't even started yet, you can draft leagues. I'm like, I'm here for it. I got you. And so I did this and I thought, oh, I'm going to get cute. Odell Beckham Jr. He's going to be great in 2022, right? He's going to get the offseason. He's going to recover from his injury. He's going to get signed he's going to still be with the Rams. First off, is what I believed at the time. And midway through the season, he's going to get back to that wide receiver 2 status. He didn't sign with another team until this year. And so in those leagues where I was getting cute with OBJ, I just wasted a roster spot all season long because I was betting on someone who I wasn't guaranteed that he was going to be on the field. And that just goes right into our next point. Chris, did you want to add anything before then?
I was going to say an example. Your story prompted me. Alvin Kamara this year. Is he going to get suspended? Is he not? Do you take that chance? If you do take the chance, does he play at all? You don't know.
It's a good one. Like, also, what about Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt? Are we sure they're going to get signed? Like, if maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, Zeke Elliott. Yeah.
Who knows? Zeke Elliott is a good one. Which brings us to our third point. So in best ball, it is much easier to waste roster spots compared to redraft, right? Because in redraft, when you draft players, you can always just move them later, right? You can trade them away. You can drop them to the waiver wires. But in best ball, let's say you draft a third elite running back when you don't need one. You've now blocked that roster spot from another player that you could be utilizing and might need later in the season, right? Like if you have 4 tight ends, why? You're not going to use 3 of them every week, right? So you need to find some sort of balance, and we'll talk more about like the ideal construction for rosters as we move along. But just this idea of if you're drafting in best ball, you need to be aware that you can waste roster spots much more easily. Matt, I'm going to come to you to add any thoughts on this.
Yeah, you have to be very intentional with your builds because you can't. We'll keep hammering this because it's very important. You can't change your roster. Once you draft it, you draft it. So you have to be aware of a few things. Like every single format, know the scoring system in your league, know what positions are going to be you are going to fill with starters, right? There are in tight end premium leagues, like maybe you are rostering 4 because it's good for you to have that many people, right? It's all dependent on the type of league you're in. One other thing I would mention with the being intentional, be aware of bye weeks, people. I've seen some builds where people have all but one player on bye week in one position, same bye week, which is talk about wasting roster spots. Maybe they were best available, but your job or your time that week is going to be bad. You know what I mean? So it makes sure that you are filling your roster with players that in theory are going to actually make your starting lineup, and then bank on your stars in certain positions to be those stars, and go maybe lighter in those positions than others.
Yeah, 100%. Chris, you got anything to add?
Yeah. On Underdog, which is where I run probably 99.9% of my, let's just round up, 100% of my best ball drafts. The main build is 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and then a flex. So if you go running back, the third running back is either going to be your flex or they're going to be benched every time. You might want to optimize it by after you go 2 running backs to go a lot of receivers, which is also why I like to do the 8 hours per pick and not 30 seconds. So I don't blunder my way to that.
Yes, 100%. I am very much a slow drafter every chance I get. So those highlight the key differences between best ball and redraft. And before we get out of here tonight, we're going to talk through our 3 strategy points when it comes to best ball. 3 things that you need to know, the keys to best ball that we think are some of the most important things for you to know before starting your first draft. Matt, we're going to start with you. Give us your first strategic point.
Yeah, you got to bet on the upside of players, especially later in drafts. So I know a lot of us, myself included, like to be more risk averse with your stars because you need them to produce like the stars you need them to be. Because it's hard to win these things. Like we keep mentioning this, you don't get to be the smartest person in the room with waiver wire pickups and roster management and outsmarting your opponents. Once you draft, you're done. So especially again later in drafts, bet on players that you think could vastly outperform their ADP, right? So someone, let's say all it takes, who's a good example? I like Van Jefferson, for example, for this year. Potentially the wide receiver 2 on that Rams team that I think is going to be just god awful. But someone's going to have to catch passes, right? And all it's going to take for a player like him, especially boomer bust players like him, is to have 1 week where he scores, okay, I stand by it. I guess he scored like 2 touchdowns, right, in one game. And then if he starts 1 week for you, that was a win. That was a win there. So you really need to not assume the worst with people at the end. Think of especially again later in drafts, will this person be a starter for me once or twice this year? If so, that's a good pick.
Yeah, 100%. I know Chris's heart broke when we were talking about the Rams being bad this year. I think it's true, but we do have a Rams fan in here, so
I mean, I'm a Patriots fan. You can tell me we're gonna be bad too, and that'll be probably accurate.
There's some other takes there we could get into, but I'm gonna leave that for a different time. Chris, got anything to add on this? I'm betting on upside.
NFL season can't come fast enough for the Rams. Prove y'all wrong. Anyways, I like the bet on upside. Like you said, Van Jefferson, he's not going to be an every week starter. He's not going to be a redraft player. But if you draft him 17th round, 18th round, and he starts a couple weeks for you, that means he probably blew up in those couple of weeks if he's going to jump 5 or 6 wide receivers and slot in. Another was the Bears trio. If you go get Khalil Herbert, I think he's still the highest drafted player, but later on down the line is Roschon Johnson. We don't know how that backfield's going to shake out. Call your shot.
Yeah, 100%. It's betting on the upside, and it's betting on yourself to make the right picks, right? Particularly if you're playing on sites like Underdog and Best Ball, where you're literally betting, right? Bet on the best outcome, right? You are basically making a statement. I'm willing to lose this money by placing this bet. And so if you're going to do it on the best outcome that you can imagine happening.
And it's earnestly, you need to. Like I said, it's so hard to win these things. Like, you need to find those players that are going to do better than anyone thinks they will, right? Where the positive outcome for them is so high. Granted, because your lineup is optimized, sure, you wouldn't start a Van Jefferson every single week, or Darnell Mooney, or Marcus Jones if you're playing IDP. Like, you're not going to start them every week, right? But all it takes for them is 1 or 2 weeks to do it. So, and that's how you win. Your stars that you draft in the beginning need to perform like the stars, right? And then you pepper that in with those really high upside players at the end.
100%. I love it. All right, Chris, give us our second strategic point.
So be aware of the roster construction of whatever draft you're doing, tournament, league. Be aware of that. In Underdog, the main one quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, a flex, and then you have 18 total roster spots. So there's a lot of ways you can construct a roster. But like we've said, there's different strategies. If you go running back heavy, does that limit your upside with these high variance receivers? Like if a Van Jefferson hit 40 points and all of a sudden Josh Jacobs is on your bench that week. Or if you draft a Mahomes early, you're not going to be drafting 3 QBs. You're probably going to wait till almost the very end and go get a Desmond Ridder or a Sam Howell or someone like that. Tight ends, if you miss on a top tight end, that might be the time to go 3 tight ends. Like if you go Chigokonkwo, Gerald Everett, Noah Fant, something like that. You just want one of those guys to produce a solid week between the 3 of them every week. So just be aware of roster construction.
Yeah. And in some ways, this has to go back to the point we were talking earlier about how easy it is to waste roster spots in best ball, right? If you're drafting Patrick Mahomes, you're drafting him to be your starter 16 out of 17 weeks, right? Because he gets 1 bye week. And so I don't need to draft 2 other quarterbacks if I'm betting on Mahomes being the best quarterback. I did baseball best ball this year.
Oh,
which was really
that
fun
is
for me.
You're deep in it.
Although if you're gonna do baseball, because I'm in a baseball redraft and it's far too much work. I think best ball is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm also in a redraft. It's a lot of work, but I did a best ball one, and it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if I draft 2 elite pitchers and I can only start 3, I'm not going to draft like 8 pitchers, right? I'm going to draft like 5 because I'm betting on 2 of them being my starter every week. Similar concept here with football. If I'm getting 2 elite running backs, I probably don't want to like get 6 running backs on my roster at that point because I'm betting on those 2 to be my starters every week.
Yeah, and if one of them goes down or if Mahomes goes down, sorry, you're not winning.
You lost.
It's already over.
Yeah.
And it's and if you were to say, haha, take that, I'll take Mahomes and Allen back to back, or something of that ilk, you lost there too because other people scooped up the other players. So you really have to, your stars need to perform and you have to build it around that.
A good example of that with the running backs, like if you go Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley at the end of the first, early second this year, which is about where they're going in best ball, you probably shouldn't draft a 3rd elite running back. You should probably take them later. Take 3 shots on a Roschon Johnson, a Jamal Williams, players like that who can maybe get you a week, but they're not clogging your roster.
Yeah, 100%. So our third strategic point, I'm going to take this one, is don't get too sunk in on player takes. And I want to caveat this just a little bit. So if you're doing one best ball draft, sink yourself in on those player takes. Like just get your guys, right? I'm a big proponent of if you're just doing a couple drafts here and there, like go get the players you believe in the most that you're excited about. But if you're really wiling out in these best ball streets and you're like me where I've drafted 38 teams, do not get too sunk in player tanks, because if you draft Travis Kelce in 100% of your leagues, which isn't going to happen, but if you did, and he gets hurt week 2, you are screwed. You are 100% screwed. You're losing every single one of those. And we're going to talk about this more and more throughout the episodes we'll have this summer, but you need to kind of approach this as a portfolio where you have certain levels of exposure to different players. Like right now, my most exposed player on Underdog is Kyle Pitts, which I'm actually pretty excited about now that I think about it. It's 31%. But my number 2 is Chico Okonkwo. But the funny thing about this is I'm not that huge on Chico Okonkwo this year, but somehow I'm like, yeah, well, he's there. I'm taking him 25% of my drafts. But what's good about that is if I take Chico Okonkwo in 25% of my drafts and he fails this year, I still have 75% of drafts where I did not take him, and I don't have to rely on him to return the value that he needed to. So when you're doing this, just keep that in mind. Be balanced from draft to draft, unless you're just doing a couple of drafts. If you're doing a couple, go for it. Get your guys, get the people you want to pull for. But if you're really trying to like do a lot of drafts and really spread the love. Chris, Matt, anything to add on that?
I mean, yeah. So every fantasy analyst has their sleeper, right? They have their guy that's going to do super great. Here's the thing: it's hard to regularly hit sleepers, right? It's a lottery ticket, right? Which some people are better, looking at analytics and things or whatever they do to be able to guess which players are going to do it. But a lot of us out here, we're not great. Hand up, not don't have the best hit record, but sort of expected. So related to that, listening to the chatter, like of course listen to it. If you're only in a couple, it's more fun to draft people on either like teams you really like or players you like. It's more fun to watch the people you want to succeed, right? But yeah, don't go all in on all the same people, to your point, because if something bad happens, you're going to be screwed.
Yeah, I wanted to look at my exposures too. So in my 15 completed drafts, I have Derrick Henry at 53% as my highest drafted player. Everyone who knows me knows Cooper Kupp 101 this year. Lock it in. I only have him 33% of my drafts, and I've actually taken Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson several times over Cooper Kupp because I want to diversify that portfolio, right? Even though I think Cooper Kupp's the 101, I don't want to be left holding the bag if he gets hurt.
100. I love it. Guys, this has been incredible. I'm loving that we're doing this. Great episode. Enjoying doing this with you both. This is going to be all for our episode this week, our inaugural episode of Summer School. Before you go, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on those notifications. Just do it. We go live all the time. And hey, when the regular season gets here, it's really going to be a lot. You don't want to miss it. Remember, you can find the 2023 Ultimate Week 17 Best Ball Study Guide at clubfantasyffl.com. Our Dynasty podcast, Dynasty After Party, aired yesterday and is available in your feed now. This morning, we had our weekly Mock It Like It's Hot show. Tomorrow's going to be our next installment of Her Story in the Maker, where the great Britt Flynn will talk to special guest Ashley Hart, founder of She Plays. Tomorrow night, we'll have Kelly Singh and Adam Hallis bringing you Who's Your Caddy, our DFS golf show, which I just love.
Brilliant.
And then Wednesday night is our flagship show, no pun intended. And also don't forget, we're releasing articles covering all 32 teams. Today we released our Los Angeles Chargers piece, spotlighting Keenan Allen and giving a short burst on every other fantasy relevant player. But for Matt Record at MRecord21 and Chris Molina at Chrismo2413, I'm Austin Amandolia at Austin_FFL. This has been Summer School. And until next time, remember, defense wins championships, but offense wins fantasy football. Best ball wins money. We'll see you next time.